Hello, I'm Druzelle Cederquist. Welcome to a closer look at storytelling, creating connection. At the end of our last unit, we watched a video by Maria Popova about the importance of storytellers in today's world when we are awash in information, and how the storyteller can take us up a ladder from information to knowledge to wisdom, helping people to figure out what matters in the world and why it matters. A great story, she tells us, plants the seed to grow a new understanding of the world, of our place in it, of ourselves. I really like how Maria Popova talks about the role of the storyteller and the impact that we can have. But I also like what Andrew Stanton has to say. Andrew Stanton is with Pixar. We remember him from Toy Story, Finding Nemo, WALL-E, these great films that you might have seen. And Andrew Stanton says this: the greatest story commandment is make me care. Please, emotionally, intellectually, aesthetically, just make me care. And this, I feel, really gets to the heart and soul of what storytelling is about. The goal of storytelling is not convincing someone else of your truth, not even filling another mind with information, or necessarily entertaining. The goal of storytelling is to make me care. Care, we know, involves mind and heart, really the whole person. And how do we begin to make me care? We create connection. Now, when we talk about the goal of storytelling is to make me care, it doesn't mean that our stories don't have information, or that they might also be entertaining. They might even convince someone of our truth. But it shifts the focus. It's a subtle shift, but it shifts the focus of story as an object to story in relation to the person who receives it. So how do we begin to make me care? Well, the first thing is to create connection. Who does the storyteller connect with? Another person or room full of people who bring their own life experience to the listening experience. So when you tell a story, you're telling it to a person who is not an empty vessel into which you pour information or a blank slate on which you write, but another mind, heart, and imagination. Storytelling is a collaborative effort. Effective storytellers do not tell listeners how to feel, but they give them enough specific information to allow listeners to feel, to engage their own minds, hearts, and imaginations. For example, if I told you that Bob was a wonderful, holy person, what would that do for you? Well, not much, because I haven't really given you much to work with. But what if I told you this? The Bab was imprisoned in Maku for a whole year. Authorities wanted the Bab and his cause to be forgotten. So he was imprisoned in Maku, in this pocket of the mountain, during the sweltering heat of the summer, during the winter, when the water froze in droplets on his face. But the Bab let nothing deter him. Every day he revealed new divine verses, 8,000 in all. And as he wrote, the Bab would chant the divine verses, and then his strong, melodious voice would drift out through the prison window and down the mountain to the village below. The villagers were captivated. They began each day to gather at the foot of the mountain, just to hear these beautiful verses. And they would say to one another, "Surely the Bab is a holy man." Now that's a short bit of story, but it gives you the listener a little more to work with, a few more details, something to engage your imagination, your mind, and your heart. The fact that storytelling is a collaborative effort, that it's about creating connection between the storyteller and the listener, is really good news for storytellers. That means you don't do all the work. You have minds, hearts, and imaginations who have been working in the world all this time. And here they all are, ready and waiting to work with you. So creating connection. What's the first step? Well, as we did last time, the first step is finding your own connection. But here I'm going to add something that Doug Lippman, who has been a storyteller for decades and a storytelling coach for a number of years, shares with his people. He talks about MIT. The most important thing is what the story means to you, the story that you want to share. So he might say, he has a short list of what you might consider. What do I love most about the story? What draws me to the story? What is the story about for me? What does the story mean to me? What do I most want to communicate through the story? You don't have to answer all of these questions, but it gives you something for you to reflect upon. Now, for example, when I told you in the last video the story of Akabuzurg, Badi, my intent was to focus on the power of storytelling. Nabil sitting up all night telling the heroic stories of the Babis to Akabuzurg had a profound impact on that teenager. You might want to, if you were telling the story of Badi, perhaps you would want to focus on his transformation with Baha'u'llah, or on his sacrifice as he delivered that tablet to the Shah, and your story would be a little different. So again, here we are with a small assignment to share a small story, or I would say a small encouragement. So the first thing is to pay attention to your own experience. And we could always go back to the basic question, what do you remember? What stays with you from what you read? And share that small bit of story with an uncritical listener. You can also go back to that list from Doug Lippman about various ways that the story attracts you to perhaps refine your reflection. Then you share that story with an uncritical listener. Now here are a couple of more story decisions to consider. They're simple actually, but it's very useful. First of all, where does your story begin? What's the middle of the story? Where does it end? And what size is your story? One of the helpful things about this is that we often keep on talking, and if we know where we're beginning and where we're ending, it helps us to stop talking at some point. And really, what do we want to put in the middle? So for story size, for example, the story that I shared with you about the Bab at Maku is actually a very short bit of story, but it has a beginning, middle, and end. The Bab is imprisoned at Maku, in the hopes that he will be forgotten and his cause forgotten. He continues to reveal the divine verses. He attracts the people in the village below. It has a beginning, middle, and end, even for a very short story. Remember, the story that you can tell can grow over time. And remember also that you are growing your storytelling comfort zone. You grow that zone by practice. So as we said, if you have a friend you can practice with, if you're maybe taking this course with a group, that gives you the perfect setup for sharing stories with one another, or share it with whoever you have coffee with or dinner with. Just grow your storytelling comfort zone. So with that, I will say goodbye, and I will meet you in our next storytelling video.